50 Cent and his mother, Sabrina Jackson, have been a sensitive subject in hip-hop for decades. Recently, King Harris, the 21-year-old son of T.I. and Tiny, posted a video telling 50 Cent to dig up his late mother and share a photo of her grave. Since then, the internet hasn't stopped reacting. To understand why King Harris said what he said, you have to look at where this situation really began and why it hits differently once you know the history between 50 Cent and his mother. To understand how King Harris ended up making those comments about 50 Cent's mother, you have to go back to the start of the tension. The root of the issue is actually pretty straightforward and traces back to Verzuz. T.I. explained that he lost respect for 50 Cent because of what happened surrounding their rumored Verzuz battle. In a clip from an upcoming episode of $1 million worth of game shared by co-host Jilly the Kid on social media, T.I. broke down how the situation unfolded and why it bothered him. For those unfamiliar, Verzuz was a platform where two artists faced off by playing songs from their catalogs. It became a major cultural moment during and after the pandemic, with fans tuning in to watch legendary artists trade hit records. According to T.I., he and 50 Cent had already agreed to participate in a Verzuz together. T.I. explained that the idea was meant to celebrate both of their catalogs rather than turn into a rivalry. He even said, "Me and this Nacho talked about this. I didn't just call him out of the blue. This didn't come from nowhere. We were moving around Los Angeles doing shows together." So from T.I.'s perspective, this wasn't a random challenge. He claims they had real conversations about it, worked together in some capacity, and even performed shows together in LA. T.I. said they had an understanding that he would mention the Verzuz idea publicly first, and then 50 Cent would respond afterward. But when T.I. finally brought it up, he says 50 acted like he had no idea what he was talking about. Imagine agreeing on something privately, being told to announce it, and then watching the other person act confused when it becomes public. According to T.I., that's exactly what happened, and it's the reason he felt disrespected. He didn't hold back when speaking on 50 Cent after the Verzuz battle never materialized. "I don't want to stand on stage with him. I don't respect him," Tip said. And those aren't words he uses lightly. When T.I. says he doesn't respect someone, he means it. He pushed things even further in the comments, writing, "You playing on my name when only one of us a rat in real life. You know I got your paperwork, right? And my transcript is available online. Your excuses are useless." T.I. didn't hold back. He told 50 to get in the ring or stay quiet, calling him soft and saying he'd lost all respect for him. Then he took it even further, claiming he had paperwork and accusing 50 of being a rat. In hip-hop, that's one of the most serious accusations you can make, and T.I. didn't just say it in passing. He put it out publicly for everyone to see. That's when the situation really started to heat up. The tension began when T.I. accused 50 of avoiding a Verzuz battle they had supposedly discussed. Instead of confirming the event, 50 took a different approach. He leaned into social media, posting jokes and memes rather than addressing it directly. That's classic 50 Cent behavior. Anyone who has followed his career knows he rarely responds to conflict in the traditional way. He doesn't rush to record diss tracks or go on livestream rants. Instead, he trolls. He turns his opponents into punchlines and lets the internet do the rest. That's exactly what he did to T.I. At least at first. But then one post changed everything. The situation escalated when 50 Cent shared a post that included a photo of Tiny Harris along with a caption warning T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth. The post immediately started circulating online, and it didn't take long for King Harris to respond. That image pushed the situation in a completely different direction, turning what had been a typical rap feud into something far more personal. So once family gets involved, the tone always changes. There's a line in most disputes that people try not to cross, and bringing someone's partner into it is usually one of them. But once that post went up, King Harris stepped in without hesitation. On Sunday, February 22nd, he took to Instagram stories with an emotional and explicit response after the veteran rapper shared the unflattering photo of his mother. For King, this wasn't just internet drama. This was family. King isn't just a random voice jumping into the situation either. As the oldest son of T.I. and Tiny, he grew up in the public eye and has been building a name for himself as an artist. Over the years, he's made it clear that he takes his family seriously and isn't afraid to speak up when he feels they're being disrespected. So when that photo of Tiny was posted, he reacted immediately. Had captioned the post with a warning to keep his name out of the conversation. King fired back in the comments, making it clear he was ready for things to get messy and directly bringing up 50's mother. That was the first real turning point, when the exchange shifted from shots between rappers to something much more personal. After that, King took things even further on Instagram stories. In a series of videos recorded from inside a car, he went on a long rant calling out 50 for trolling his mother. During the videos, he brought up 50's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, who passed away in 1983, and told him to post a photo of her instead. He repeatedly insisted that Tiny should be left out of the situation and questioned how 50 and others online had been raised. What started as a few comments quickly turned into a full response, with King speaking at length and making it clear he wasn't backing down. King kept going in his rant, making it clear he felt disrespected and saying he wasn't raised the way he believed 50 was. He repeated that he would never let anyone talk about his mother like that. And then he said something that immediately set the internet off. King told 50 to dig up his mother's grave and post a picture of it. He repeated the statement more than once, even telling him to go put flowers on her grave. At the same time, he defended his own mother, calling Tiny a legend and pointing to her career and success with Escape, including her Grammy-winning work. But instead of stopping there, he pushed things even further. King then went onto Instagram and posted images that made the situation even more intense. He shared a photo of a headstone and wrote, "This where your mama at?" He also posted a picture showing the name Sabrina Jackson on a grave marker, along with explicit captions directed at 50. These weren't random images. They showed a real gravesite, a real headstone, and the name of a real person who had passed away. Those posts quickly spread online, putting the situation in front of millions of people. On top of that, King shared additional posts that included what appeared to be a gravesite bearing the names connected to 50's family, along with other images and clips meant to target him personally. So he didn't just mention 50's mother in words, he went out of his way to include visuals and make the situation as direct as possible. For many people watching online, this became the turning point. This was where some felt the situation crossed a line. It's true that 50 Cent had started the latest round of tension by posting a photo of Tiny Harris and trolling the situation. But the debate online quickly became whether King Harris had gone too far in response. Many people pointed out that there's a big difference between posting an unflattering photo of someone who's alive and bringing a deceased parent into the situation. That distinction is what made this moment feel heavier than a typical rap feud. To really understand why King's comments hit so hard, you have to understand who Sabrina Jackson was and what she meant to 50 Cent. This wasn't just a random reference to a deceased parent. It was tied to a real and painful part of his life story. Born on July 6, 1975, Curtis Jackson grew up in South Jamaica, Queens, raised by his teenage mother, Sabrina Jackson. Life in that neighborhood during that time was difficult, and making ends meet wasn't easy. Sabrina became involved in street life as a way to provide for her son, a decision that shaped much of his early environment. Sabrina had Curtis when she was only 15 years old and raised him on her own. Despite the challenges, she worked to support him in whatever way she could. According to 50, she refused to rely on welfare or low-paying jobs, choosing instead to make money the only way she felt was available to her at the time. In interviews, he has described how the people connected to his mother's world were the first examples of wealth he ever saw. The cars, the jewelry, and the outward signs of success all came from that environment. That lifestyle became one of his earliest impressions of what financial freedom looked like. But beyond that image, Sabrina was also the central figure in his life. 50 has said that she was both a mother and a father to him, the one who cared for him and the one who disciplined him. She pushed him to be tough and taught him not to show weakness, lessons that stayed with him as he grew older. Then in 1983, everything changed. Sabrina Jackson died under circumstances that were widely believed to be a homicide. Reports suggested she had been drugged before a fire was set in her apartment. However it happened, the loss left a permanent mark. 50 has spoken openly about how losing his mother at such a young age affected him, often saying that he felt many things in his life might have turned out differently if she had been there. Her death wasn't just a tragic event. It became one of the defining moments of his life story, which is why bringing her into the feud struck such a deep nerve. And then, just like that, whoever was responsible disappeared. Despite the suspicious circumstances surrounding Sabrina Jackson's death, no one was ever arrested and no one was ever charged. The case remains unsolved to this day. That's the reality 50 Cent has lived with for more than 40 years. His mother was killed when he was just 8 years old, and no one has ever been held accountable. That kind of loss doesn't just fade away, especially at that age, and it shaped the course of his entire life. He has spoken in interviews about how he processed, or more accurately, didn't process, what happened. Over the years, he built a public image around being tough, emotionally distant, and impossible to rattle. But whenever the subject of his mother comes up, that image tends to crack. He once described the feeling as pure shock, explaining that at 8 years old, he couldn't even understand what had happened. When you grow up with a single parent, that person becomes your entire world, your provider, your protector, your teacher, and your support system all at once. Losing that one person means losing everything familiar at the same time, and that's exactly what he experienced. At first, he struggled to accept that she was really gone. When family members told him she wasn't coming back, he couldn't fully grasp what that meant. Like many children dealing with sudden loss, he convinced himself that she would return. The idea that death was permanent didn't make sense to him yet. He later admitted in interviews that he never truly dealt with the grief in a healthy way. There was no therapy and no real emotional support system to help him process what had happened. Instead, he turned outward and adapted to the environment around him. After his mother's death, Curtis Jackson went to live with his grandparents, who took him in and raised him as their own. His grandmother became the person who gave him stability and care during a time when everything else felt uncertain. Even so, the loss left a lasting void. By the time he was around 12 years old, he had already started heading down the same path he had seen growing up, getting involved in street life while still just a kid. That shift in direction was deeply tied to the absence left behind by his mother's death. Even in his grandmother's home, which was meant to be a place of safety, things weren't always easy. He has spoken about feeling out of place at times and sensing tension within the household, but his grandmother remained the constant source of support. She stepped in fully, raising him with care and structure, and he has often credited her with keeping him grounded during those years, because of all this, when people bring up his mother, they're not just mentioning a name from the past. They're bringing up the defining trauma of his childhood, the loss that shaped who he became. It's something he has carried into adulthood and even into his creative work, including projects inspired by his early life experiences like Power Book 3, Raising Canaan. When speaking about that period of his life, he has described his mother in the simplest but most powerful terms. She was everything to him. She was his entire world, and that world was taken away when he was still a child. That's why the situation with King Harris struck such a nerve online. Telling someone to dig up their deceased mother, posting images of a gravesite, and repeatedly referencing that loss goes far beyond ordinary trash talk. When people reacted strongly, it was largely because they understood what Sabrina Jackson's death represented in 50's life. It wasn't just about a feud or harsh words. It touched on the deepest and most painful part of his past. That wasn't just another diss. It touched the deepest nerve 50 Cent has. Anyone familiar with his story understands how painful that subject is, and the internet understood it too. Almost immediately, old interview clips began resurfacing. Videos of him speaking with Oprah Winfrey about not understanding death as a child started circulating again, along with moments where he spoke to Larry King about never fully processing the loss of his mother. People watched those emotional interviews side by side with King Harris's rant, and that contrast made the situation hit even harder. So after all that, the big question became, how would 50 respond? How would one of hip-hop's most famous trolls react to someone telling him to dig up his deceased mother? Instead of a long statement or an angry response, he did something much simpler. On February 22nd, he posted a meme featuring Pepe the Frog on Instagram with a short caption, LOL. That was it. No detailed explanation, no direct mention of anyone, just a meme and 3 letters. Fans immediately understood who the post was aimed at, and the comments filled up with speculation. For some people, that response felt more cutting than a direct reply would have been. By keeping it short and dismissive, 50 avoided giving King the satisfaction of a visible reaction. But at the same time, it left people wondering whether it affected him more than he let on. After all, this is someone who has openly shown emotion when talking about his mother in the past. He's spoken about that loss in interviews, struggled to put his feelings into words on camera, and admitted that he never fully dealt with the grief. So when a 21-year-old publicly mocked that pain, many wondered what was really going on behind the scenes. The situation didn't end with just one meme. 50 followed up with another frog image and continued posting, even sharing a clip of commentators joking about Tiny Harris's appearance and comparing King to her. The posts made it clear that he wasn't backing down, he was leaning into the trolling even more. That's always been his style. Respond with humor, keep things public, and turn the moment into entertainment. Meanwhile, T.I. took a different route. Instead of memes, he went into the studio and responded musically, previewing a diss track that took direct shots and repeated accusations about paperwork and credibility. With that move, the situation expanded beyond social media and into music, showing that the Harris family wasn't planning to stay quiet. So in the end, each side responded in its own way. King went personal, T.I. went lyrical, and 50 went back to trolling. But what made this situation stand out was the deeper context behind it all. 50 is someone who lost his mother to violence at a young age, something he has said shaped his entire life. No matter how many jokes he makes or memes he posts, that part of his story has never gone away. When King told him to dig up Sabrina Jackson, he wasn't just throwing out another insult, he was targeting the one subject that has always been off limits emotionally. And even though 50 responded with a simple LOL, that doesn't necessarily mean it didn't land. Sometimes it just means he chose to respond the only way he knows how, by brushing it off in public and moving forward. What started as a disagreement over a Verzuz battle turned into something much bigger, a clash involving family, reputation, and personal history. For now, it continues through posts, previews, and reactions, with both sides holding their ground. Beef comes and goes, diss tracks fade, and social media posts eventually disappear. But the kind of loss that shaped 50's life is something that never really leaves, and that's the part of this story people will remember long after the drama dies down. That's all for this one. If you found this video informative, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload.